Hello everyone, it's Jamal Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. Let me make sure I am up. I'm seeing green all around, so I am going to assume that things are active and I am broadcasting. And let me do one last check. I do a sound check because there have been times where there's been no sound and I've done entire videos to my own humiliation. Yeah, and I'm seeing myself moving and shaking in the corner. So, early Sunday morning, well, actually it's mid-afternoon at this point. Guys, but I try to start these shows off saying this. We're trying to make a habit of it. Start it and ending it because it's important. First, I want to thank all my patrons. I want to thank all the people who like and share my videos, who leave comments, who send me emails. You guys help keep this show going. You're immensely appreciated. Oh, and the people who give super cash. You guys are immensely appreciated. Thank you very much. I've said before, I'm trying to make this more of a part-time gig with emphasis on changing or transferring this into something that's more full-time. So thank you very much. I wanted to have a larger discussion, or I want to have a larger discussion on Bernie Sanders and what I consider to be the Bernie Sanders strategy of the left, or lefties. Now, allow me to chop a little wood before getting directly into this, because I kind of want to make a point or give a larger context to this. In my last show, I kind of made this point about workable point of views, meaning human beings, the way you weigh, value, measure, scale, all those things lead you into a particular point of view, in addition to the things that are acting on you. If you're a consciousness in a jar that could exist without any kind of needs or anything else, that would be one thing, but that is not what we are. The things that are in our particular environment, the things that we're aware of, have an effect on us. Just so happen to be human. There are things that you want. There are things that hurt, that ache, that you empathize with, that you're repulsed by. All of those things are an aspect of you being a human being, and all of those things lead to you weighing and measuring and scaling things a particular way. You give a particular texture to the world that you're in. So even though you're sitting by Bob and you and Bob are experiencing the same thing, the universe that you and Bob inhabit are somewhat different. Now, I say this to give some kind of idea around how lefties and people in general have been breaking from the political sphere. Meaning, again, taking God off the table, meaning value is the thing that we ourselves give it. Because there's no other ultimate consciousness. Like, it's one thing if you say you have a hammer. Well, somebody clearly made a hammer. A hammer is used banging nails or beating attackers. It has a purpose. There's a specific thing that that hammer is there to do. You as a human being, we can't bring God into the mix, so we just are. We define our purpose. We define our value. We are the determining factor on what's good, bad, and everything else, at least from our own particular context. That is shared among 7 billion people, so you can understand the conflict of interest or the conflicts that arise when one value system meets headlong into another value system. But take the value systems from all of these people off the table for the moment. Sometimes these things aggregate around one another. It's almost like people on a particular wavelength, gravitating towards one another. It's like similar wavelengths gravitate towards one another. When somebody on that wavelength says something, people within a particular wavelength think that that particular thing is true and can't necessarily see the bias of that particular filter because it's their own particular filter. It's the way they weigh things themselves. So, it makes perfect sense to them. This is broken down into a few camps on the left with certain ideas on strategy. At least to me, at least the way I weigh it, looking at different filters that people are using to analyze or look at the world. Bernie Sanders is cheated. Bernie Sanders is cheated. Millions of people flood or flee the Democratic Party. It's a burning boat. People, grab your belongings and your children and get the fuck out of Dodge. Now, Democrats come up with this idea of a unity commission. And you have certain camps who approach this in different ways. People like me and in my camp say, and there are various camps or various aggregations of energy, but you have one camp that says, we're going to board the ship. We're going to take it over. We're going to do whatever we have to do. And we're going to go into the Democratic Party. This is our party. We're going to take that party over. And they're using the Unity Commission as the stepping stone in order to do that. Now, my argument has been, if they know that there is no circumstance where you're not going to vote for them and not give them your support and not push for a particular candidate, then they have no impetus to change. You have no third parties. You have nothing else. Those things have beaten and destroyed. And ultimately what you have is a Democratic Party. And you have a bunch of people who are disgruntled about that party. And you have a party management, the quote-unquote governing class, that understands that the people who are disgruntled and bitching and moaning at the end of the day will still vote for them nonetheless. Why do we need to change if we already have your support regardless of what we do? Why does the alcoholic husband that's a drug addict that beats his wife, who the wife goes around with the black guy saying, I accidentally fell down the steps, I'm a klutz, I can't help but falling into things? How do you think you're going to change it if you're just continuously staying and enabling that behavior? There's no point in changing. There's no impetus to change unless you're willing to leave. The 15 million people who've left that burning bus caused somewhat of a rupture or caused somewhat of a crisis in regards to what they deemed a potential threat to the party. Believing it was a potential threat to the party, they decided to have a dog and pony show of a unity commission to pull certain people back into the mix, to say, hey, here's a chance. Here's a gateway. We're giving you this opportunity to make changes in the Democratic Party through this unity commission, and as long as you lefties come back, you can have a say in the process. Now, they took a shiv in Keith Ellison, the person who really wanted Obama, Clinton, that wing of the party, pulled up Tom Perez, and Tom Perez just so happened to win in a way that, again, wasn't commiserate with the rule set of the DNC that they laid out. They went to purging Sanders supporters while completely saying at the same time there was no cheating, nothing bad took place, we're completely united, even though everyone knew that 15 million people had left the party. They continuously lied. Donald Brazile comes out, and they attack Donald Brazile. Donald Brazile, being a good soldier, turns around saying, I never said it was rigged. I never said it was rigged. I just said it was cheated. I just said it was cheating. Look, the point I'm getting at is these camps are looking at this in a particularly different way. So one camp says we're going to board the ship. We're going into the Democratic Party. This is our party. We're going to change it. We're going to do all this stuff. This party also, in odd ways, believes the Russia narrative. This camp on the left, even though from a policy standpoint, these guys will probably be on your side, they assiduously believe the Russia narrative. They hate Donald Trump. They hate him to a passion, with a passion. And so they full well go with this idea of publicizing this idea that Russia has something to do with the election because they hate Donald Trump. Anything that hurts Donald Trump, they want to be on that bandwagon. And so they help and work with Democrats with this narrative. At the same time, trying to claim that lefties need to be a part of the Democratic Party because they can change the party and they're going to take over the ship, etc., etc. This other camp thinks that camp is full of shit. This other camp thinks that the Democratic Party can't be salvaged. And at the very least, he can't be salvaged in the way that they're trying to salvage it. This other camp does not believe in the Russian narrative at all. They ultimately believe it was a leak, that it was not a hack. And they have the VIPs, the Veterans Intelligence Professionals for Sanity, who worked in counterintelligence, who looked at what was taking place and came to this kind of scientific conclusion that, well, wait a minute, the transfer speeds, from a physical standpoint, this is impossible. The transfer speeds that they're looking at makes this a leak, not a hack. The media had wanted nothing to do with this information. They've assiduously stood with the idea of Trump and Russia as it puts asses in seats. The President of the United States working with a foreign place. Oh, that's good. That's good news. That's good media. That's good media. Reality has nothing to do with this. Counter-narratives has nothing to do with this. Trump and Russia. And if in 1 year we come back and find that the information is not true and we've been lying to our audience for a year and a half, then we just can't bring that information up. Trump and Russia. Every failure that they've made where they've lied to the American public has only been in one direction, against Trump. They're trying to find something that makes the case that the narrative that they've been screaming at the top of their lungs about has some validity. It does not. They found nothing. They found nothing. The Nunes releases the memo showing that the FBI did not give all the information to the FISA court that would have been necessary to at least give some counterbalance or some context to the information that they were given. Ultimately, they built all of this a case against Donald Trump using a dossier that was paid for by his opponent. There was no validation for it. There was nothing to up. Even Comey himself said it was salacious and unverified. The camp that I'm in believes that it was somewhat of a hoax. Believes this is somewhat of a conspiracy theory, and that unless they can show a smoking gun between these things. And I feel, I think that lefties have an idea, meaning a strategy, and this is the first strategy that I would say the left has actually come up with in a while. The question becomes, is this strategy going to work? And I call it the Bernie Sanders strategy. This idea that if you get Democrats in office in 2018, that if Democrats take the House and the Senate, meaning whatever they do to not rock the boat in any way, to get across any idea that they are failures, that they are problematic, that they don't live up to any particular standard. We need to talk about Trump. We need to be entirely about Trump. We need to say Trump is gross. He's working with Russia. He's a Putin puppet. He got peed on. We need to say whatever we can say about Donald Trump, whether it's true or not, because he's the problem, and we need to make sure that the public understands that he's the problem. And even though we lost 1,100 seats throughout the United States, we lost the House, Senate, Supreme Court, and we lost the president to a ham sandwich, even though we haven't fundamentally changed anything, we need to put this on Donald Trump. We need to make sure that all of the attention is on how gross and over the top Donald Trump is. If they win in 2018 with that strategy, they would have changed nothing. The Unity Commission is going to go away. Meaning, they've already established that if there's somebody batshit crazy in for Republicans, the left, the people who consider themselves on the left, Democrats, even some progressives, even some wayward socialists, would say, okay, you got us. We will vote for you. I'm saying that's a problem. I'm saying that's somewhat of a bad strategy. And I'm saying that the last thing you want to get across to them is that if you're terrified of Republicans, that you're willing to give anything to vote against the Republican, meaning it doesn't matter what the Democrat is, doesn't matter what the Democrat does. If that Democrat is going to privatize Social Security, if that Democrat is going to put some kind of larger conflict in Syria, if that Democrat is going to put fracking all across the United States, it doesn't matter what the Democrat does. The logic is he's not as bad as the Republicans, so okay. What does that get across to them? That gets across to them that we don't have to change squat. That the public is brain dead enough to come dragging themselves back to us, knowing that they were completely disenchanted with us. That they were hapless, but being that the Democratic Party was somewhat hapless and never really got anything accomplished from their own standpoint. They still go back to him, terrified of the other guy. I'm saying that is a bad thing to get across to them. And there is no such thing as accountability in a world where they know that you're going to vote for them because you're terrified of somebody else. The Bernie Sanders strategy assumes two things. It assumes that Democrats can take the House and the Senate, meaning that certain lefties are willing to fall in line with whatever the party does, believing that they can take the House and Senate, needing to blunt the edges of Donald Trump. And the second point is that Sanders will run in 2018, and that Sanders will win in 2018. Now, that's assuming that Sanders gets a fair shot in the primaries. That's assuming that there's no intervention in the primaries. That's assuming that his brand hasn't been tarnished over the next 3 years working in collusion or in cohorts with Democrats. That assumes a lot. That assumes that the media still gives him the same attention that they gave him before. That assumes that superdelegates are off the table. That assumes that the state apparatuses, the same state apparatuses that threw 200,000 people off the rolls illegally in New York, that gamed the system in Nevada, that gamed the system in regards to the way money was flowing into the coffers of the candidate that the DNC wanted to win. That assumes a lot. That assumes that the Unity Commission can actually get the reforms that they've talked about, meaning ending superdelegates, or 60% of superdelegates, cheating the process, 60% less. That assumes that they can open primaries. They're making a whole lot of assumptions with little to show for these assumptions. That assumes a lot. I agree that Bernie Sanders is the most popular senator. I agree. I agree that given a fair shot, he may win those primaries. I agree that he's even a front runner in those primaries right now. Democrats take it in 2018. Let's say they're right. Let's say the polling is right. Sanders runs in the primaries. The best case scenario, and I think the strategy that these guys are looking at, and this, look, to be fair, it's the first strategy that the left has had in a while with any level of validity and any level of potential for taking place. Sanders wins the primaries. Sanders destroys Donald Trump in a landslide election. Sanders browbeats the Democrats. Meaning, this is not a situation of having Obama and everybody's on the same page of doing nothing. This is Bernie Sanders bashing Democrats over their head, using the bully pulpit to full effect to try to affect his particular agenda, knowing full well that you have a lot of rabid Sanders supporters out there, meaning you're unifying the left in some way if he's in office. on this particular point. Because look, I may disagree with what Sanders is doing right now. A lot of people may disagree with the Russian narrative and all this other stuff. A lot of people may disagree with him working with Democrats. But you know that if he's in office and if he's pushing an agenda that you like, you're going to be behind that particular agenda. And the Democrats who are against that particular agenda, I feel sorry for you, because you are going to be, look, you're going to have a hard way to go fighting that particular agenda with a rabid base that is after you continuously, persistently, to get you to change that tone, particularly if American public is on board with what he's saying. If Sanders, the president of the United States, says, I'm pushing for health care for all, what Democrat is going to oppose it? What Democrat is going to oppose it? And will that Democrat be able to keep his seat if he's opposing it? You put pressure on the apparatus when you have somebody in that office who actually wants to get particular things accomplished. They don't want him in that office. They don't want to be put on record of saying, I know I said I was for this, but I'm not really for this. They don't want to be put on record and put on display saying how much failures they are, how much different what he is in comparison to what they are, and try to retain their seats, being against the things that at that point the president of the United States will be for. A very popular president, by the way, will be for. A president that unifies and pulls all of these independents that were out of the process back into the process. That pulls some of these people who voted for Trump into the process. That pulls Democrats into the process. That's the best case. That's literally the best case scenario that you could think of in regards to a Sanders strategy. Now, thing is, what if it doesn't happen that way? What if you get Democrats in 2018? And what if nothing has changed? The Unity Commission is scuttled. Because at that point, you don't need a Unity Commission. You've already got elected. Somebody could come out and say, hey, the Unity Commission was a success. We were able to get our people in office. Thank you for your services. No, Mika, you can have an exit. Yes, I know. You can have an exit. What if it's not Sanders that wins? What if it's Cory Booker? What if it's Cory Booker? What if it's Kamala Harris? What if it's just some random corporate wheat bread Democrat that has always been a corporate wheat bread Democrat that is bought and comes out and parroted the things that they think you like to hear in these bland, monotone ways that has no meaning at all, and it's just there to kind of give you this kind of Pepsi Coke commercial style language, because they don't plan on getting anything real accomplished. What if all of these rabid Democrats who've been screaming that Russia supposedly hacked them, releasing factually true information showing that they were cheating somebody else, what if these rabid Democrats are the ones in office? And what if you have somebody who's, again, corporate warmongering Democrat that wins in 2020? That strategy for only betting the farm on Sanders is a risky strategy. That's what I'm saying. And this idea that you're going to pledge your allegiance and support to Democrats regardless of what the Democrats do is a risky strategy. And I think lefties need to think beyond just this idea of Bernie Sanders being, you know, their savior in the way that I think they're believing that he's going to be a savior. Now, personally, I think the Sanders strategy has legs. I think it is amply possible. The DNC, if Sanders takes elected, is going to be completely reformed, meaning what Sanders will configure to be a DNC will be fundamentally different than what a Tom Perez will be configured to DNC. The president chooses who heads the DNC. So even in that case, what it means to be a Democrat gets fundamentally transformed based upon the president in that office. I don't want to say that's utopian. I will say yes. I think there's a chance for that. I think yes, if you get somebody like Sanders or Gabbard or dark horse Elizabeth Warren in some respects, that you may get this thing to beat certain things into the Democrats and get them to conform in particular ways just because they want to keep their seats. It's possible. So I don't want to say it's impossible out of hand. I will say it is risky. And I will say that I am not seeing the gains that will be required for that to take place. I said before in one of my earlier videos that if they're showing progress, if the Dementor crowd, the people who want to board the ship, if they're making progress, then one of the things that you would see would be the Unity Commission being implemented. You would see the superdelegates taken away. You would see open primaries. You would see these things. These things would have been put into effect. Tom Perez himself has power to put these things into effect. Tom Perez chose not to put those things into effect. Tom Perez did purge Bernie members. It's them bringing things close. The Unity Commission is a dog and pony show. That's all it is. That's all it is. It's something that was given to people to make them feel like, okay, this is somewhat of a raw nerve right now. Let's deal with the raw nerve and we can kind of push this shit away when people aren't paying attention. If they're making gains, then those things should have been implemented. I was being fair about this. I even said, if they're making gains, this is the condition to which you would see they're making gains. And what I see is that members are fighting the Unity Commission. They don't want to implement these things. And when you look at what will take place, meaning if they have potential to win in 2020, in 2018, then the impetus for them to make those changes goes away. It goes away. You've already given them your support. What do you call holding them accountable? That's what I want to know for the people who are in Dementor, like Nina Turner, Naomi Kahns, all these people, even Bernie Sanders. What do you consider holding them accountable? And do you consider holding them accountable not voting for them? And if that answer is no, I mean, well, you got to vote for a Democrat. Then there's no holding them accountable. It doesn't really matter what you say. It doesn't matter your protests. It doesn't matter how mad you get. It doesn't matter if you have your earrings swinging where you're screaming at the people in the DNC convention. None of that matters. Because at the end of the day, when it comes down to it, you go into a booth and you pull the lever for that particular party. And if they know that that's always going to be the case, then they have no impetus, no reason to change. Zero. Your strategy is based on this idea that Bernie Sanders is going to take it. I'm saying, what if Bernie Sanders doesn't take it? What if these guys win? What if these guys start winning through the states? Nothing has fundamentally changed. What if these guys start winning through the states? The impetus for change goes away. The Unity Commission goes away. The chances of Sanders getting back into that office goes away. They realize, holy shit, we can cheat a candidate. We can get away with it. We can even get the candidate that we cheated to fall in line to support us and to cover the fact that we cheated him in the first place. And the people who supported him, the lefties, all of these other people will come running back to us because of how bad the other party is. We have this on lock. And it is okay if we float back and forth between Republicans and Democrats, because ultimately we'll come back in office in 8 years. Nothing changes. Status quo. This is a risky strategy. My question here is it the only strategy that's available? That's my question. I leave that question open to some degree. Personally, I think there are two fights, or two sides in this fight. There's a fight against the party itself, and there's a fight against the other side, meaning Republicans themselves. But the fight against the party itself is the most important. It's the most important. If you want to change the Democratic Party, and I'll leave it at this, if you want to change the Democratic Party, I understand there's a belief that Sanders is going to take it. I personally hold a certain degree of belief that if Sanders is running, I'm going to vote for Bernie Sanders, and yes, I want him to win. But I understand that it's very possible that Sanders doesn't win. We don't know what this field is going to look like in 2020. We have no idea if Sanders is going to win. It is a risky strategy to assume that he is. It is a far more risky strategy to assume that just giving your support to Democrats is somehow is going to make a difference. They're not the resistance. I'm sorry. They're not working for your side. I'm sorry. When you look at the party structure, both parties, neither party is working for your side. I know things are tilted to get you to believe that it's one versus the other. The problem is both. The problem is both. Now, yes, if Sanders gets in, Sanders may do some amazing things in office, at least in comparison to what's taken place in prior Democrats. But that assumes that he gets in. The problem, or part of the problem here, is being overwhelmingly complicit to whatever Democrats do. My suggestion is to give your vote only to people who you believe represent your interests. That is my suggestion. Political activism and all that, yes, that's true. But when I'm just talking about the pure expression in regards to when you're at the polls and you're making a decision, I suggest giving your vote purely to someone who represents your interests. And to be vocal about that, to be very clear about that, to not have any hedge when you say that, meaning it is understood that you have no affiliation with that party at all, and that ultimately the person who you're voting for is a person who you personally believe is going to represent your particular interests in that field. If that means the Democrat loses, then the Democrat loses. You will get nothing to change if you're willing to continuously and complicitly enable your abuser. That's my point. It's not enough to say you hope Bernie Sanders wins. Yes, I hope Bernie Sanders wins too. It's not enough to say I want Democrats in Congress and Senate and Senate and, that's not enough. You have no idea if Sanders is going to win. Meaning whatever strategy, whatever policy that you do has to take into account that it is possible that he loses. I would argue that the strategy that you need to implement is to be very clear that you have nothing to do with party politics, that you vote for whoever represents your interests. If that is a Green Party member, then that's a Green Party member. If that's nobody, then that's nobody. If that's a Democrat, then so be it, that's a Democrat. But vote for the people who represent your interests and make it clear that that party could lose. Be very clear that you're okay with that party losing. Be very clear that you're not part of the brain-dead camp that is so terrified and cowardly that regardless of who the Democrats put up, if that person is going to privatize Social Security, if that person is going to invade us into other wars, if that person is going to be toppling other democracies, if that person is going to enable the surveillance state to proceed in the way it's prevailing, that he fails. That he or she fails. I don't give a shit about their identity. They will fail if the policy choices are not in line with what represents your interests. That is a strategy. That is a very clear strategy, just as a citizen and a human being saying, yeah, I'm not going to be complicit in that. The only way to get real change, meaning if you're trying to save that party, is to be willing to leave that party. In the same way, if you're trying to save the alcoholic drunk spouse, is to leave that alcoholic drunk spouse and to stop enabling the behavior of that particular spouse. If they find him coked out and dead from a heroin overdose, it was God's will. I'm sorry. It was his choice. He made a bad choice. If he changes, to some degree, it was because you weren't enabling. I make the point that from a political standpoint, Democrats, lefties, have been political enablers of Democrats for the past 30, 40 years. It's time to wake up, and it's time to walk out. I would like Bernie Sanders to win also. I would like Bernie Sanders to redefine what it means to be a lefty or a Democrat. Yes, I would like that. Do I believe that that's going to take place? I have no clue. Am I expecting that to take place? I am not. I am not. It is possible that Sanders loses. It is possible that with wins in 2018, that the impetus for any level of change goes away. The pressure that was being put on the Democrats had to do with people leaving, not to do with people coming into the party. There's a difference in those things. One is an existential threat to the party itself. Running into the party is this kind of indirect way of saying everything is okay, it's party politics is normal, let's keep this party going. TYT is a problem. Bernie Sanders, to some degree in this respects, is a problem. Lefty media outlets that believe that the Democratic Party is perfectly okay to some degree are part of the problem. These guys have Stockholm Syndrome, and these guys are believing something that I don't understand why they believe. That in any way this party can be saved by getting people and shilling for the party itself, pretending as if this thing is some kind of resistance. I hope Sanders wins, but I don't know if Sanders is going to win. Yeah, I'll leave it at that. I'm not going to beat a dead horse. I just think, I understand the strategy itself. I don't know what an alternative to the strategy is, if I'm being honest. Personally, I get the appeal of blunting the edge of Donald Trump in 2018, having Democrats win the House and the Senate. By the same token, I also understand that the problems associated with that is the party hasn't changed anything. The party is still the same party that failed miserably to the extent that it failed miserably. You have people just running back to it for Trump. Do I want to reward bad behavior? No. Which means I'm stuck with this reality of I vote for the person who represents my interests. Now, if that Democrat is representing my interests, then he has nothing to worry about. If he's actually doing what the public wants, then he has nothing to worry about. If you're Joe Kennedy, yuckmouth, giving a bland speech, and you're bought by drug companies and military companies, and you're giving this kind of platitude-laden speech, then yeah, you have something to worry about. You should fail. You should fail. You're a pale shadow of your family. You should fail miserably. Vote for who represents your interests. That's a strategy. In fact, that's not just a strategy. That should be words to live by. There should be words to live by. If that means that one party fails because they couldn't live up to it, then that means that party fails because they couldn't live up to it. You're not rewarding failure. I'm not paying the garbage man if the garbage man doesn't come. I'm not paying the guy to mow my lawn if he doesn't mow my lawn. Why am I going to give somebody my vote if they're not actually representing my interests? Yes, that means that somebody who I don't like may actually win that particular process. But it also means that when something comes up that I do like, I am behind it. And I am giving support to something, saying, yes, I want this to continue. I want this particular behavior, this behavior that represents my interests, to continue and persist itself. As opposed to, I want the behavior that doesn't represent my interests to continue and persist itself. And here's my vote, being complicit, giving you support for something that I don't like and don't agree with. So I'm going to end it at that. I don't want to beat a dead horse. I just wanted to get that across. Let's see. This is going massively long, and this is the problem with doing live shows like this. But I have people here. Let's see what everyone else thinks. Pat Hacker, I don't plan for voting for Bernie. Yeah, I'll believe you in 2020 if we have that conversation. Skip Rock, Jamal endorsed Trump in 2020. Good fucking luck on that. Let's see what Gardner said. I won't vote for either major party no matter who's running. Muslim lover of peace. I'm with you, Gardner. Pat Hacker, Muslim lover of peace. Man, probably because money equals speech today. Yeah, we have that conversation when it comes down to it. I think you guys... and look, you could be perfectly right. But I strongly suspect that when it comes down to it, the same pressure that typically works on people when it's like, oh, this guy is so gross, but I hate the other person, but fuck it, I'll vote for the Democrat. I suspect the same pressure is going to focus on you on Sanders. I honestly, the reason I suspect that is, it's not you going in and voting for Clinton. That's easy to say, okay, I'm not going to do that. Or Kamala Harris. That's easy to say, okay, I'm not going to do that. Sanders is different. Because you know that at least 60% of what he says, you agree with. At least. So it's a little bit more pressure to say, okay, I'm not going to do that. The reason you're not voting for him is because you believe that that party and everything else is somewhat bought and corrupt. And I agree with you. That party is bought and corrupt and is problematic at best. If you want something to represent workers, I think you need something else that actually represents workers. That being said, Sanders does represent workers. Now, whether he can reinsole the Democratic Party is a second question. But there is impetus and pressure on the individual when they're going into a voting booth, when a person is there, that they at some point support it. And they know that there's still that person in there. I think there's pressure. Let's have this question as this conversation in 2020. I'll believe you more when he gets closer to it. Yeah, I believe you more when he gets closer to it. Andrea Weisner. We know the Unity Condon. Yeah, I think that's somewhat of a con job. They own both. You never really had a choice of who to vote for. Skull and Bones versus Skull and Bones, Bush versus Kerry. It is kind of that way, right? The argument between oligarchs, Democrats and Republican parties. And understand what I mean on this, because this is a good point, and this is fundamentally true. Don't take my word for it. Just look at MSNBC and look at Fox News. The no-net plutocrat on MSNBC comes out saying he was fucking angry when Democrats started talking about class. Now, it was a tepid class talk at all. But he was pissed off. How dare you talk about class? Don't you dare talk about my money. Don't talk about my cash. Don't talk about my millions of dollars, my exploitation of my workers. How dare you talk about that? I called Nancy Pelosi, and I called Chuck Schumer, and it was some other random Democrat he threw in there. Apparently, he has their phone numbers. I don't have their phone numbers. He called their personal number. Shut that shit up about class. Or you're not getting any money from me. I'm shutting my wallet. We're shutting our wallets. If you're talking about our wallets, shut up about our influence. Shut up about us bribing you. Shut up. And Democrats, shut the fuck up. They know who pays them. They know who they're on a payroll for. And they understand that if we say certain things, if we go beyond certain bounds, we're not going to get paid. They're not going to pay us. Our donors are not going to give to us. There's a story on Fox News already showing that these guys got like $400,000 in the bank. They're bone dry. They can't get donors because they can't win a goddamn thing. Donors don't want to throw their money into a burning boat. Yeah, there's something to be said about that. Both parties are bought. On the Republican side, you had the same thing. One of the Republicans saying, my donor said that if I don't get this tax bill done, giving them a large share of money, all this trillions of dollars, that they're going to shut their wallets. Both parties have people openly saying that we are getting paid to shut up about certain things. They're bought and sold, both. Both. So I understand the feeling of nothing takes place that's going to adversely affect their donors from both parties, seeing as that they're completely dependent on the tit of the donor. It's like their knees are dirty and they're just sucking for the ooze of their donors, their next fix. Yeah, dude, I agree with you, man. I understand where you're coming from. I totally understand where you're coming from. Garden Gnome, Nomika's response to people bitching about her softball Donna Brazil interview was hilarious. Yeah, I watched that. So I watched, she was real defensive about like the rehabilitation of Donna Brazil. And I'm like, that woman is a political operative and political hack for the past 40 years. And you're acting like she's, lollipops. Like she's going to make you gumbo when you come over and you guys are friends and buddies. And you guys have your shoes off just watching movies together. It's like, calm down. The woman is a political hack. And she's played you like a fiddle. And you're believing that everything this woman has told you, even though she was complicit in the fact that they were cheating one of the other people, they act like the cheating is this normal, natural thing. Fucking undermine democracy. Like, we have a representative government. That's all we got. You have two major parties. That's all we got. They act like this is a multitude of choices. You have two major parties. Both parties are bought and sold. The candidate that people gave $220 million for, you guys cheated that candidate. You were part of the fact that they cheated that candidate. You knew they cheated that candidate when you were head of the DNC. Talking about the cancer. They rigged the process. You noted when you were hawking your book that they rigged the process. Regardless of what you say afterward, you noted that they cheated the process. You admitted that Hillary Clinton was breaking campaign finance laws. It doesn't matter that after you explain how she was breaking campaign finance laws, you leave the Senate saying, this wasn't illegal. Yes, it was illegal. Just because you said it wasn't illegal after denoting something illegal doesn't make that last line doesn't clear the fact that what you said was illegal. Yes, I robbed this bank, but, it wasn't illegal. Oh, no. I didn't say that the person robbed the bank, was a bad thing. I just said it was unethical. I just said it was unethical. I didn't say it was illegal. No, it was fucking illegal. You described illegal behavior. All I'm saying is, this woman is not your buddy. This woman is an operative. She's there. She's a good soldier. If you can write a book saying that they cheated and then turn around saying they didn't cheat, you're a good soldier. Ingratiating herself to Nomik Hunts. Ingratiating herself to Tim Black. Ingratiating herself to lefties in this way. It's done because they want that support. They want people on the left. They want these lefties who are disenchanted with the party to get more enchanted with the party using these media networks and these media people in order to do that. This is political gamesmanship. This is gamesmanship. It is disheartening that someone on the left have fallen for it. That's all. That's all. Going to eat popcorn to watch in 2020 as Jamal sends his money to the Democratic Party for Bernie. Yeah, maybe. Depends on what takes place. 459 Dorello. Unity Reform Commission is a dog and pony show. If Nomi keeps propping that up, she is a shill. Yeah, I think it's a dog and pony show too. I mean, the whole point is that I've made, and to be fair to them, I've always said, if they're getting results, then at the very least I have to say, okay, they've made impact, they've made grounds, etc., etc. But I don't know if they've made results. They've had a commission. Tom Perez has the capacity to implement those things by himself. Tom Perez is not implementing those things. When is the meeting supposed to take place? I don't know. Who knows? Who knows? It wasn't scheduled. Who knows? May never take place. And they may vote on it. Doesn't necessarily mean that vote will go through. And right now, they've been backing away from those ideas that were put in the Unity Commission in the first place. Dog and pony show. Dog and pony show. And yeah, if any of these groups are talking about getting people in office and all this other stuff from Democrats, is TYT supporting Joe Manchin? Is TYT supporting Joe Manchin? If Paula Swearengin loses, and I like Paula Swearengin, so I want Paula Swearengin to win, but say the worst happens and she loses, are they supporting Joe Manchin in West Virginia? I'm fascinated by that question. I'm You have no idea how fascinated I am by that question. And this is not me taking shots at TYT. I don't think it's taking a shot at anybody saying who you vote for. Who do you vote for? Who do you want to win? Who is your support going behind? Now, I understand if they say, oh, well, we're not supporting Joe Manchin, we're just voting for Joe Manchin. BS. Your vote is your support. Your vote is your support. There was this, I pulled up the video the other day because one of my subscribers said, Cenk Uygur never said he supported Hillary Clinton. And it's like, are you fucking kidding me? Are you kidding me? I watched the video when he did it. When he was out there. It's like a 30-minute video with him bashing people for not voting for Hillary Clinton. The entire time. I'm not saying you shouldn't vote for Hillary Clinton, but I'm saying you should vote for Hillary Clinton. So yeah. Democratic establishment has no bench. They're done. I just wonder if Bernie can even overcome the division and the disgust for the party. Buster Peake, I wonder that too. There are a lot of people, man, that are completely disenchanted with this. You cheated a guy. What do you expect? You cheated. And this puts me in mind of what took place in the 50s and 60s with the Republican Party and blacks. How, you know, there was this generational thing where African Americans understood that the Republican Party was against their interests, that the hardcore racists jumped into the Republican Party during this kind of southern strategy thing, and that at that point blacks were in the hands of Democrats, voting like 90% for Democrats, regardless of what wheat bread random Democrat was propped up. Is that what Democrats want? Or is that what's taking place in regards to them cheating Sanders? Where they've created this generational thing of people who understand that they cheated their candidate and who are reluctant to vote for anybody with a D beside their name. I know I am. And I don't think I'm alone on it. There's a massive headwind. There's a massive headwind for somebody voting for anybody other than with a D beside their name. Kashwari Kate, I'm food prepping for the week. What is your favorite item? You're giving food away, Kate? Yeah, send me some. John Crab 67. Tulsi is the real deal. She stuck her neck out for Bernie. As far as I can tell, Bernie has not covered her. John Crab 67. I agree with you, man. I like Tulsi. Did you read the letter that Hillary's camp sent to Tulsi? Oh, it was disgusting. It was disgusting. It was like, how dare you not support Hillary Clinton? I mean, it was a shitty letter that they sent to her, angry at her because she didn't fall on her knees and bow down to the most qualified candidate in the history of candidates that lost reality shows. How dare you not support Hillary Clinton? I mean, it was an amazing letter to read. It's yeah, fucking disgusting. Shwari Kate, I'm getting ready for Garden Gnome. Pet Hacker, K2RK, I love beets. Nice. Sean Crab, hamburgers. You can't beat a good hamburger. We have, there's a hamburger joint. So my wife and I, when I proposed with a flash mob. Now, I had this history of doing things to my wife, and I was upping the level. So I remember one time when she did something, I can't remember what it was, but her entire bottom deck of her office, when she came downstairs, had all of this stuff with her picture. It had lays so people can put lays on. It had like ribbons and stuff saying congratulations to Aisha. Like the entire thing was literally just like, oh my God. Somebody, it was up for like 2 hours. So somebody came to her office and was like, hey, there's something downstairs for you. Like in one of the other cases, I had this dancing clown to go to her office, and he goes to her office, and he's in the bottom floor of her office dancing with balloons and stuff like that. And he was like, your husband loves you, your boyfriend loves you. He sent me here to tell you how much he loves you. So for the announcement, or for the proposal, we had a flash mob at this place called Station 2. Station 2 is the best burger joint in Virginia, in Richmond. Humanely raised. All of their stuff is from local farms. The place is fucking amazing in regards to the food. It tastes amazing. But there's a bunch of other people who are in, who the people who she know are hiding like behind certain parts of the place. The Bearded League of Virginia. These guys with these beards. I didn't know they were going to be there, but they just so happened to be there. And they decided to get in on the fun. And so at a certain time, a bell rung. I think I want to marry you from, what's his name? Bruno Mars' place over the loudspeaker. And the people in the room just gets up and starts dancing. just flipping out, dancing. And she's looking around like, oh my God, what is taking place? she's there's a video of her being a fat kid with food in her mouth, like with a fork, like, oh, I'm like, I don't know what am I supposed to be doing here. And the music stops after like 15, 30 seconds. And I propose. And the Bearded League of Virginia and all this other stuff is full on into the process. Full on in. They had it on their website, something like that, showing a part of the scene. So it was funny. But burger joints, yeah, Station 2 is a damn good burger joint. There's another one in Carytown that's one of the best in Richmond. Like, again, Hugh Englery's, all this other stuff. Food is amazing, though. Food is amazing. Yeah, I think she enjoyed it. I think it was something memorable. And I like massive displays of affection that are grossly embarrassing. Jake Smith, to Big Enriquez, Tulsi is against all wars as far as I know, but a great Twitter to ask Tulsi about. Yeah, she's been adamant about being against those wars. I mean, this is the same woman who went to Syria, comes back and says we need to stop arming Syrian rebels, or we need to stop arming terrorists to take down that country. We need to stop doing that. Now, CNN has a bias. Their bias is always pro-war. Their bias is whatever the United States does is good around the world. So you can understand this creates this kind of cognitive dissonance. Oh my God, there's somebody on the air telling the truth about war and what's taking place in Syria. Blah, 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 blah. The government says that that's not true. The Obama administration said that's not true. Stammering. Jake Tapper stammering to get out the government's narrative of events. Yeah, it's awesome. Garden Gnome. I love a good burger. I'm on a reduced meat diet and I've tried to go full veg, but that hasn't worked. Garden Gnome, yes, I am in that camp with you, Garden Gnome. Man, we failed together on this. It is not an easy thing. It is not an easy thing. Like, the way I was able to do it before, not full vegetarian, but I was able to cut out all meat with the exception of turkey and fish. I kept turkey because I needed sandwiches. My weight like plummeted ridiculously when I didn't have it. I kept thinking to myself, I'm eating this purely because my taste buds like it. Like I am taking a knife and I'm plunging it into an animal that's alive. And I'm cutting it up and I'm eating its flesh because it tastes good to me. It seems like such a menial thing to take a life because something tastes good. That's so weird to me. Like when you think about it in those terms, that's what's taking place. I am destroying this life. I'm killing this thing. This thing experiences pain, loss, and loneliness, and all this other stuff in the same way that I experience pain and loss and loneliness. It cares for his kids in the same way that if I had a kid, I may care for it. At the very least, I care for my dogs. And I'm destroying its existence, physical matter, reality, because one of my senses of taste, my taste buds, get excited by it. Oh, it feels gross, and if it makes me feel weak. That being said, habituation is a difficult thing. And that goes beyond habituation. It's also your society telling you that X, Y, Z is okay. Rome have their gladiators. Their gladiators are murdering Christians, throwing them to animals, watching animals eat and destroy human beings. And the society itself says this is perfectly okay. It makes it a little bit more difficult to run contrary to the narrative of that society. Why aren't you going to see the games? What do you mean something's wrong with the games? Well, yeah, I understand you think it's wrong, but I mean, they ripped this guy's throat out. It was fucking awesome. You're running contrary to the society. So you have McDonald's and Burger King on one corner after the next. Wendy's, you have one burger joint after the next. Animals are put in cages. Animals are being abused. Animals are being destroyed and murdered and killed. And they come up with a hamburger. You never have to deal with the process of cutting that animal's heart out or cutting that animal up. You just get the end result of a tasty hamburger. Now, that's destroying the environment. 50% of the environmental degradation comes from our animal agriculture. The person who eats the hamburger is contributing to the demise of the planet. Not to mention the torture and the suffering. It's almost like a karmic revenge for the things that we're doing. Even though the individual who's eating the hamburger may have a heart of gold in every other context, they're still part of the process. They're complicit in it. It is not an easy thing to, get over habituation if you've been habituated to a particular behavior for 30, 40, 50 years. In my case, 40 years. And it's also, in addition to habituation, accepting that, okay, just because society does something doesn't mean that particular thing is right, particularly within context of my own value system. And running contrary to what society says is perfectly okay, and running contrary to your own habituation is not an easy thing to do. People who are vegetarians are better people than I am. They've been able to overcome this particular habituation. Some of those people may not have been vegetarians their entire lives. Everybody in my family are carnivores to a ridiculous degree. So it's not easy, man. I've tried. When I went to Ecuador, blew that completely, blew it to shreds. And I've been trying to catch the wave ever since to get back on that thread. So, Garnum, I agree with you, man. I agree with you. Garnum, I don't make the rules. Thing kill other things and eat them. Torture is a different matter entirely. Factory farming is torture. Yeah, agreed. Agreed. I mean, just as a flat fact, yeah, things kill other things. We have choice. We have choice. It's not about making the rules. You do make the rules. You make the rules. Human beings. Now, I think you're trying to say the rules of nature per se, but you make your own rules in which you live by and the things in the contexts you go by. I have a hard case. I don't understand the argument that killing and eating human beings is bad, but eating animals is okay. Both are animals. Both care for their kids. Both have intelligence. Both have things that they want and aspire to. All those things are true. Both of those things are equal to one another. The only difference for this is intelligence. That's it. That's the only difference. We're trying to say intelligence makes the difference on whether or not you can eat and kill something. I still say if something else comes to our shores, what is our argument? We've just given the premise, or we've just made the position that it's okay to eat these things because we're smarter than these things are. Can other beings say the same thing? They're different species, so for their standpoint, there's no conflict of interest. Human beings eat things that are other species. They're a different species from us. Where our intelligence is lesser than. They can make the argument. We're smarter than them. They say they're smarter than their animals, so they can eat their animals. What's the problem? What's the issue? Are you saying that if another species comes to our shores, it's perfectly okay for that species to eat us if it can make a determination that they're smarter than us? Certainly, this argument of intelligence being the only bellwether to whether or not we can eat meat is problematic. When I eat meat, I have a certain guilt associated with the fact I eat meat. I feel shitty about it. So, I'm one of those people who are. It's like there was a show, I can't think of the name of it, but the guy was a gay cop. But he hated being gay. Like, he had this religious overlay associated with him. His family just kind of beat him over the head with religion, so he grew up being this kind of Catholic. But he was gay. And he could not get over the fact that he was gay and yet hated being gay. I mean, he hated gays at the same token he himself was gay. So he had this hatred of himself that he just couldn't get over. It was like, oh, I hate myself. I hate what I am. At the same token, completely dismissing the fact that he has no control over what he is. And not, like, and I guess I see it in these kind of terms, where it's like being an eater of meat, being a carnivore, and at the same token hating the fact that I'm a carnivore, and trying to manage that, or at the very least trying to harness that into not being as much or as bad of a carnivore, if that makes sense. It's weird. Soylent Green, a great movie. No, this wasn't Soylent Green, but yeah, you're right. Soylent Green was a great movie. What dirt do you think they have on Howard Dean to get him to finally play ball? Same shit happening to Grayson. What dirt they have on Howard Dean? They don't have any dirt on Howard Dean. They're giving Howard Dean a lot of money. He's a fucking lobbyist. Howard Dean is a lobbyist. He's like, pew, pew. That guy has been fed a steady diet of cash. That's what Howard Dean. That's what they have on Howard Dean. David Von Kettering. It's a cookbook. It's a cookbook. Yeah. Twilight Zone. I was looking for that the other night. I was giving my wife this kind of primer on the Twilight Zone. I was like, I gotta find that thing, the cookbook. It's a cookbook. Man, talk with James. I've been keeping up with Alan Grayson lately. I didn't know that. I need to check Alan Grayson. I didn't know Alan Grayson was on that bandwagon. Back to cannibalism. No, that's not back to cannibalism. I'm not trying to go back to that. I'm just trying to make this point that I don't understand the argument that we make for eating meat. It's okay. That's all. I don't get the argument. Like, what's the justification? And if you say, well, there is no justification, fair enough. Fair enough. Like, there is nothing to justify. We just do it. Fair enough. I like this hamburger. This hamburger tastes fucking amazing. If God really cared about the hamburger or these animals, it wouldn't have made them taste so good. Oh, okay, you can say that. You can say that. I'm just saying I don't know how human beings are off the menu, but animals are, and I don't understand the justification for one as opposed to the other. That's all. It's not. I'm not trying to make an argument for cannibalism. I'm trying to make an argument against um, carnivores. I see most establishment figures given two options: play ball and accept this money, and shut up or be ruined. More so than Pyaw even could sink him. You know, the funny part is, somebody asked me, how does Pyaw sink you? It's like, how does that be the thing? And I was making a point to him. Howard Dean was a lefty, and they used anything that they could dismiss Howard Dean on. At the time, the stuff that Howard Dean was saying was to the left of what these guys are running now. Or the Howard Dean back then would be ashamed of the Howard Dean now, assuming that the Howard Dean back then actually had some kind of substance. They played it on loop. And they said, this guy's a maniac. This guy's unhinged. This guy's losing his shit. Do you want this guy screaming like this into the White House? Like, that's what they said about Howard Dean. They just played it on the loop over and over and over again. Look how unhinged this guy is. The only thing you have to do from a media standpoint is look how unhinged this guy is and play the clip. Whether he was unhinged in the clip or not is kind of besides the point. You've said it. You've ran it over and over again in a loop. You've told people consistently over and over again. It becomes a certain brainwashing. Reality had nothing to do with it. That should not have taken somebody out of the process. But in that case, it was enough. It was enough. Good argument of being vegan. The great apes and chimpanzees closest to us are primarily vegetarian. They eat insects, but not other animals. Not to mention the health issue, man. The heart disease, the illnesses, the cancers, all those other things. We assume that those things are just aspects of being human, as opposed to aspects of our diet and how we live. Make assumptions. That's funny. Don Von Kettering. My brother had a neighbor give him several chickens and a rooster. The rooster attacked people, so my brother named him Donald. Had to get rid of him because he was dangerous. That's funny. That's funny. Nash, I ate shark once. Oh, I wonder how was that. I had kangaroo. Kangaroo was actually pretty fucking good. It was a weird taste. Like, it's so bizarre of a taste in comparison to what we get here in the States. I've had, what is those things called? The things with the long legs. Ostrich. I've had ostrich. That was the most disgusting meat I think I've ever had in my life, and maybe it was the way he cooked it. But I had ostrich. I've had pigeon in Egypt. It was like they stuffed the pigeon with they caught birds with pigeons, and they stuffed them with rice. That was actually pretty good. That tastes more like chicken. Deer meat, love deer meat. My grandmother would get that from hunters or people who hit it with their cars in Virginia. Some of this stuff tastes good, man. It's not the easiest thing in the world to give up. Yeah. Garnome, we have justification for killing things and eating them. Basing it on intelligence is absurd. We don't have justification for torture. There are health reasons as to why you should avoid cannibalism. Fair enough. Chimps eat meat. They actively hunt and practice cannibalism. David Von Kettering. Garden, just don't eat brains or never ganglia. You'll be okay. Nash, we eat anything. I don't think on Judgment Day my eating pork is going to be a priority. Oh, you said on Judgment Day. I don't think there is a Judgment Day, but okay. Robert Pouquet Ray, nutrition and maintaining health is too expensive. It's weird how health costs a ransom. Bob Ramirez, they don't kneel down like Dean and Sanders did. Who is they? I don't know who they is. Oh, they don't all kneel down like Dean and Sanders did. John Cracker 667. Jamal, are you familiar with economic? Yes, Robert Blythe. He's on Ritual. Yeah, I like Blythe. I like that cat is awesome. I've seen several of his lectures. Like 10 of his lectures. He has an accent. The accent is fucking hilarious. And immediately after Donald Trump, he's having a conversation. There's another woman there with him. Immediately after Trump. So the reaction is raw. Like in his explanation of this. And he calls it this kind of Trumpism all across the world, not just in the States, in regards to voting for Donald Trump. Like Brexit, Podemos, some of these other right-wing groups that are in some of the European countries. And Blythe kind of makes this simple explanation. He gives more details for it, but what it boils down to is the failure of the right is the rise of the left. Meaning, if the public itself understands that something is wrong without ever really knowing what that thing is, and it searches for answers. So it just like slashes left and right, flailing left and right, looking for what it can find. It will prefer something on the left. Meaning, if you talk to the public and you ask them just person by person, idea by idea, it would be substantively on the left, but they would take somebody on the right if it's necessary, if they will get some level of change. Failure of the left, cheating Sanders, is the rise of the right. So in some countries, like Spain, you would have a rise of Podemos. I think they may be ebbing now, but at that time, a rise of Podemos. You had Jeremy Corbyn taking over the leadership of the Labour Party, and full well with the polls showing that if the election were held today, Corbyn would trounce Theresa May. In the United States, you got Trump. The public is looking for something else. It's looking for something else. Let's see. I meant to say I would not eat shark. Oh, John Crab 6. They sell that stuff in like Jamaica somewhere. My wife and I watch we used to anyway. Our TV isn't hooked up, but we used to watch Bizarre Foods. It was the guy's name Zimmerman. It's a little chubby guy who walks around eating really nasty and disgusting stuff. He went to Spain and he went to the Ham Museum. Now, ever since he's done this, I said to myself, oh my God, if I ever go to Spain, I'm going to Museo de Ham, de Haban. My wife and I went one morning and way overdid it. This is the workable point of view thing. Like, sometimes your points of view fuck you over big time because the point of view is not adequate to deal with the situation. In that case, we were like, we're going to eat it all. We're going to the Museum of Ham and we're going to eat it all. We're going to taste everything. We want it all. That was our point of view when getting to Spain because we were kind of hyped up about being in Spain. And so it's like, if there's a Museum of Ham, oh my God, we're going to go fucking bonkers. Do you know we spent like $50 on fucking ham? And we were in the middle of it like, yeah, this was a bad idea. This was a horrible idea. This was not what we expected. This is not what we wanted. It's like we got breakfast and we was like, let's get this plate of ham. Let's get this other thing of ham. And I'll take that ham and choose your son. And I was like, oh God, we're halfway through it. Like, yeah, this was a horrible idea. This was a very bad idea. We would have been perfectly okay with just saying, let us try that platter. Your point of view, man. Your point of view. It would have been nice if somebody would say, hey, that's a bad idea. You don't want to do that. You're okay with just getting this a little bit. Yeah, it happens. It happens. Robert Pugavary going ham on ham, pretty much. Pretty much. I have 2 pounds of bacon in my fridge, but I am ashamed to fry it. Yeah. My wife and I goes to Whole Foods and we go to Elwood. Now, one thing I would say, we tried to be centrist, I guess you could say centrist carnivores. Like the meat that we get is usually humanely raised. The stores that we go to have humanely raised meat, so it's not necessarily being tortured. Ideally, they're not necessarily being tortured. Chickens that are allowed to be outside, that type of stuff. Yes, they eventually die. Yes, they're eventually killed. No, they're not tortured. And not cage-free, free range. There's a difference between cage-free and free range. There's a difference. We try. And then the second step is like, all right, now we're eating purely humanely raised. Places we're eating at are humanely raised. Can we eliminate one of the items in the diet? So we're eliminating pork, or eliminating beef, or that type of stuff. We try to do it that way, where we slowly take away the stuff and end up with just kind of a vegetarian diet. It worked for months. It worked for like 8 months, and then I took a trip to Ecuador. That was the end of that. Edward Davis. What about the mega guys in this situation? They want lefty things to do, but they've been tricked. In my opinion, it's too late for many of them, but these reactionaries fascinated me. M-A-G-A, MAGA? I don't know what MAGA is. David Von Kettering. Oh, I'm going to fry it, but I'll feel bad for a minute. Yeah, it pings on my my conscience. It pings on my conscience. Having donating too much to Bernie Sanders' campaign, I am growing weary of Berner's new Russia antics. Jim Hayden agreed. I don't know how much I donated to Sanders. I think it was like 100. More than I had given to anybody else. So You can imagine that for something I think was a leak, and he's screaming that we need to be, in some kind of conflict with that country. It's problematic for me, man. It's problematic for me. Judd Hurst, make America great again. When was it great the first time? And is that greatness purely just a facet of military power? And if that's just a facet of military power, I don't know what the saying means, that's all. Meat is murder, tasty, tasty murder. Terry Hall, pretty much. I don't want to laugh at that, but yes, tasty, tasty murder. It's like your taste buds are making the decision. Bob Mercer, there's a populist mood out there, but no candidates are willing to support such an agenda. Conservatism and identity politics are too lucrative. Bob, yeah, man. And this is kind of my point with supporting the person who represents your interests, because you need to make it unlucrative. It needs to be a penalty associated with behaving in that way. It needs to be a penalty. Oh, MAGA, make America great. Yeah, okay, thank you. You actually don't know MAGA, make America great again? The Trump people, now that you say it, yes, but I didn't know it just randomly said to me, no. It looks like a word. David Von Kettering, Abe Lincoln, while fighting to save the Union, free the slaves, found time to murder tons of Sioux Indians in Minnesota, unfortunately. Hate to tell you, but when they say humanely raised, they're lying 8 times out of 10 times. Yeah, there's certain places. It depends on the place, man. Like you say, 8 times out of 10 is finding the 2 times. I don't know if the number is 8 out of 10. I do know that there was this big kerfuffle with Whole Foods. They were saying that the stuff was supposed to be humanely raised, and it was not humanely raised. It was not humanely raised. So, think about pregnant Marie. Yeah, urine. Yeah. The stuff that they use for birth control, the estrogen, the hormones, those things are from pregnant or from horses. They essentially starve the horse, or not starve. They make the horse thirsty, or go into this kind of dehydrate the horse. And so when the horse produces urine, that urine is full of these hormones and stuff, and they use those things for medicine and put those things in pills. Yeah. Yes. For people, our skin tone, America has never been great. Better a lot of places, but not great. Agreed. Like, there's certain things that we would excel at versus others. But yeah, if you're talking about race, no. We did not excel at race. The country didn't even think there was a racial problem during the Civil Rights era. No, you're right. You're absolutely right. All right, guys, I'm going to end this. This has gone over an hour. I thought this was only going to go for like 20 minutes. So I'm going to end it here. Guys, like I said before, I'm going to start having call-ins. And I'm going to put the number for patrons. So anybody who donates, I guess, $2, hell, $1 at least, gets a call-in into the show. I still would take on the chat things, the things that come up in the print. But I kind of want to give my patrons something. I don't think it's slightly unfair that all things are equal in this case. That being said, the show is always going to be the show and always going to be available. So I want to thank everybody for joining, liking, sharing, etc., etc., etc. And if you guys would like to support the content, feel free to share, write, subscribe. And of course, you can always support through Patreon. Oh, by the way, Super Cash is also gets calls. I don't know how to make that one work. Yeah, I'm not sure how to make that one work. I need to figure that one out. But that being said, I appreciate all of the effort, or all the support you guys give to the show, man. It's appreciated. Thank you very much. All right, guys. You all have a good evening or good day.